Okay. So today we are going to talk about two other of the four language skills. Last session we discussed how to teach speaking and listening. Today we are going to discuss how to teach reading and writing to adults. Can you fill in the blanks for me? There are four language skills. What are those four?
Speaking, listening, writing, and speaking, listening, writing.
Yeah, sure. Sure, we can.
And
Speaking, listening, reading, and writing.
Reading.
reading.
And writing.
Which of them are productive skills?
Product.
Yes.
That means they involve producing
Writing
language.
and speaking.
Exactly. That means they involve
And it
Producing.
involves producing language rather than receiving it. Mm.
As listening and, oh, sorry, go ahead, Melie.
as listening and reading. Listening and reading, you receive the language, and writing and speaking, you produce it. Exactly.
And
Okay.
reading.
Thank you. First, let's focus on teaching reading. Okay. So reading is like listening, except that the input is written, not spoken. So when we work on reading, it has two aspects. One aspect is comprehension. Comprehension means understand the message of the text, understand the meaning of the words, understand the structures in the text. Now there are some, you can see some sentences here. Which one is true to you? A said reading is like listening, except that the input is written, not spoken. Do you think it's true or false? Is it true or false?
Yes, it is true.
Mm-hmm. Comprehension means understanding the words in a text. What do you think?
That is false.
True.
Yeah, that's false. Not all the words. Even in your mother tongue, sometimes you read some words that you guess the meaning.
It is
Right?
false.
Yes. Reading in classroom means reading aloud.
False.
Yeah, exactly. False. If you want to understand
Just for
something,
beginners.
basically, if you want to understand something, you have to read it silently. You cannot understand, or you cannot, it's better I put it this way, you cannot fully understand something when you read it aloud. When you read it in your mind, you can concentrate on the meaning. So it happens, I guess you have this experience. Sometimes you read something loud for a group, and then when you want to discuss about it, when there are some following questions to answer, you return to the text again and read it yourself to find the answer. Since when you are reading aloud, your focus is on pronunciation, intonation, but when you read it to yourself, your focus is on the meaning and try to comprehend. Okay. D, for teaching purposes, text should be simplified. Is it true or false?
It depends.
Exactly. It depends. Lower level.
False.
Is it for elementary? Yeah. Or it's college, a group of intellectual people or ordinary people. So simplify it. It depends. Reading is a good way of improving vocabulary.
True.
100%. If your students start to read every day, the improvement is much more than those students who
True.
they say, sometimes I watch movies, sometimes I listen to music, completely different. The aim of classroom reading is the appreciation of literary text.
False. We provide learners with variety of texts, with variety of genres.
It could be, it could be, but not necessarily. Yeah, it could be. Okay, thank you. Like listening, we have two kinds of reading for your reading sessions: extensive reading and intensive reading. We discussed it for listening. What's the difference between extensive listening and intensive reading? So, can you tell me what's the difference between extensive reading and intensive reading? Any ideas?
Well, I would imagine that the intensive reading has a goal in mind. You're focusing on particular aspects, maybe key themes, key issues. You're trying to discover things. Where extensive reading is, well, as it says in the bracket, you're just reading for the pleasure of reading.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So even your teaching method is different. Extensive reading is a kind of silent reading, and it happens by individual students based on their interest, the genre that they like. They choose the book, storybook, novels, magazines, newspaper, catalog, something that they like, and they read it. They read it for pleasure. And then they come to the class and discuss about it. It needs longer time, so you usually assign it as the homework or home assignment. They read it at their own speed. Some students can read a storybook, like 20-page storybook, in a day, but the others, it takes a week. So it's different. Yeah. So it's different. But the important thing is they like the text and they study it by joy and they love it. Intensive reading is a kind of silent reading which occurs when the learners focus on the language rather than the text. Like the course books, they have to study and learn all the vocabulary. They have to study the structure. They should know how to pronounce the words, the intonation, the stress. So, and the role of the prepositions, articles. So basically, they study not only the comprehension aspect, but also the linguistic aspect. The answer to the questions, the fill in the blanks for the grammar part, they learn the new vocabulary, they use it in their text or in their speaking. That is intensive reading. So tell me, do you think both the readings, both kinds of reading, extensive or unintensive, help the students to improve their language, and which one helped them more, or it's equal? What do you think?
It depends.
Okay. Can you elaborate what you mean by it depends?
Well, if I enjoy reading and I'm reading something that is fun for me, I'm going to have an intrinsic motivation to read, and it won't be a task. However, if you give me intensive reading assignment, um, and I happen to like the subject that I'm reading about, although it's intensive, I might still enjoy it. I might still be motivated. So um, I don't necessarily think one is better, or It depends on how I assign it and what I assign, I think.
Perfect. That is very important. So we need both for the class. What you teach in the class is intensive reading. That you practice with your students, you put them in the context, okay? We have it here. You put them in the context, you ask them to share their ideas about the topic of the reading, then they go through it, they skim it, scan it. That we are going to discuss what's the difference between skimming and scanning. They answer the question, you check how well they comprehend. If they have any questions, you teach them the new words, you teach them the new structures, you practice for the intonation, pronunciation, even you explain the cohesive devices, how sentences link to each other. So you practice all aspect, linguistic aspect and comprehension aspect. That helps them to improve. On the other hand, in extensive reading, actually they are practicing the language and also they like it. It's with pleasure. So when they get to the class, they start talking, or maybe they write something about the text they've already studied at home or read it at home. And you only work on comprehension part. You never ask them for the new words. Just tell me which part you like most. Talk about the character, talk about events. So it's kind of practicing in their speaking. May they use some of the new words? May not. But to become more fluent because they're talking about something that they like and they are excited about it. So that's a good practice. So you need both. And as a teacher, you have to think about both. The intensive is easier because it's in the coursework. Extensive, so I need to know my students. Then I look for something that they may like they like reading storybooks. So when you choose the storybooks, you have to think about different genres and just give them a choice. Which one do you like more? So at home, they read. You don't force it. What I see in most of the schools, they force the students, you have to study this or you have to read this at home. And that's why it happens. They don't like to do that. So some of them do the homework, some of the others no. The point is, it's not interesting. So what if we find something interesting, which if you're the target language also, or your target in learning also included in that interesting text. If you want to practice conditional sentences and you want your students to read this text to understand how to use conditional sentences in the text, so find the topic that they like, which is nowadays by using technology, it's much easier to find. Does that make sense? Is that clear what I want to try? Oh, okay, good. So in intensive, you work on both, as I said. You put them in the context, pre-task teaching. Put them in the context. They talk about the topic. They share their experience. They share their ideas. If they don't have any ideas, you have to ask them, or maybe you share a link with the video or simplified text with them before coming to the class. Okay? Before coming to the class. So they have ideas to talk. Sometimes you have to pre-teach some keywords, like difficult words that they need to study. If they want to understand the text, you have to pre-teach some of the words. Not all the words. You give them a chance to guess the meaning of some of them in the text. But the keywords, I would discuss it before, the keywords are the words that if they don't know the meaning, it blocks their understanding. They cannot understand the text. So not many, usually in the text, in course books, not more than 5 or 6 keywords. So you pre-teach the keywords and ask them to skim, to go over it, just skim the text, go over it and get the gist of the reading. That's the part you get to the while task activity, the time that they're practicing. Then you check their general comprehension. Then later you can go through the detailed questions, study more, and ask them if they have any questions about the new words or about the structure, and check with your students they truly understand the text. You get to the post stage that they share their ideas, which part of the text they like, which part was new to them, which word sounds weird, why they like this part more, if they have any experience similar, so they discuss it. Then for homework, you need to find the text, you need to find the reading, which is very similar in the sense of difficulties, as difficult as the text that is studied in the class, not much more difficult for them. So they go through it, they have to do some activities. Even it's much better the similar vocabulary or synonym, so they can or the same topic or around the topic that they have in the class. So at home, again, they go through skimming, scanning, answering the questions, writing something for you, or record something for you and send it to you as a homework. So in intensive, we worked on two approaches, bottom up and top down, like listening. Top down refers to comprehension aspect, that they comprehend and understand the text. Bottom up goes through linguistic part, like new words, new grammar, and even how to pronounce, how to read, and all the aspects of the linguistic part. On the other hand, for extensive reading, I know if my students wants to improve in this language, they should have more exposure to the language. It's like here in Canada, when you teach English, it's much easier because outside, everybody out of home, everybody speaks English. What if you teach Spanish? What if you teach Spanish? So they don't have that much exposure. So you encourage them to read more Spanish texts. You encourage them to listen to more Spanish audios. So they have the exposure to learn. But if I want to find them some readings in Spanish, I remember what are what about their interests? What kind of topics they like to study, they like to read. If they like, I find some texts based on art. If they like celebrities, so I find bios about celebrities, some news about celebrities, but the level of difficulty is also important. So you can Google and find and then email it to them. So that's your favorite actor? I find these things about it. So please go through the text and tell me which part was new to you. Or Google and find more news about this. So they Google it and they have to read it and come to the class and talk about it and produce the language. So they get better fluency as well. They improve in their fluency as well because they study and then come to the class to talk about it. Even you can say, yeah, give you 1 minute to tell me what did you find about this topic, or 2 minutes to talk about. Practice at home. When you come to the class, you have 2 minutes to talk about it. So you work on their fluency, also accuracy. And when you ask them to read more, even it's good, I mean, that's going to be a good practice on their speed reading. You will see when we talk about IELTS, one of the problems usually foreigners have is because they want to comprehend, they read slowly. and they look at the words one by one to understand it. So one of the techniques in IELTS classes is improve their speed of their reading. How to see a sentence, not just word by word. How to see two sentences at once. When you read your mother tongue, you read faster. Do you know why? Because of the way that you look at the text, your eyes, they don't focus on each word. They see the whole sentence because you understand the context. But if you want to read foreign language text, that's another technique. To understand it, they look at each word. So their speed of reading is very low. One way to improve their speed of reading is they start to read easy texts, like easy storybooks. So they have a better control on their eyes, how to see the lines and see it faster. So speed reading is another technique that you can help your students to improve in extensive reading. Okay, any questions so far? Is everything clear right now? Good. So in your classes, you have different kinds of reading. It depends on the class, like academic reading, or in lower classes, you have even message reading. Okay, they read a message and then you ask them what's the theme of this reading, or you check their comprehension. In academic reading, they need to read it first. That we call it, I guess, give you skimming and scanning. If I want to comprehend something, I have to go through it fast. Like reading newspaper. Or like reading magazines. You look at the topics, then you read maybe first two paragraphs to get the gist of that reading or of that news of that article. Then you decide whether you want to go through it, just read it truly, or you pass it. That is skimming. Reading the title, read the introduction, read the first sentence of every paragraph, read the headings, look at the pictures, look at the bold or underline words to get the gist. This is the first level of comprehension. The second is scanning. Scanning is the kind of technique when you go through the text to find specific information, to find the answer of some questions. So you are looking for specific information, like when it's happened, you need to scan, you just go and find the date or the year. So you're looking for numbers, you know? That is a scanning. In intensive reading, we definitely have this technique, scanning. You ask your students, okay, for grammar part, for example, you ask, look at the sentences and tell me how these sentences linked. And they say they use how here. I can say however, although, nevertheless. On the other hand, good. However, although they are cohesive devices. Okay? So you look at the grammar part as well in intensive. So you need to use the scanning technique. Or find the adjectives, the underline the adjectives. Find the adverbs, the underline the adverbs. Okay? The tense, regular, irregular verbs, past tense. That's a scanning. So this technique used for intensive reading. But in extensive reading, you just ask your students to skim the text, to skim the storybook. They go through the storybook, they comprehend what it said. Maybe they don't know some of the words, which is fine. They can guess it. They can guess in the text. Now, tell me, when you read a novel, do you skim it or scan it? When you read novel?
I skim it.
Exactly. But when you study your lessons for your TESOL lesson on Canvas, what about them? Modules on Canvas.
I scan.
Exactly. First, you skim it to find the lesson that you're looking for. Then you scan that lesson, right? First, you look at the titles. You say, "Oh, this goes for first skills." Then you go through it and you study, and even you take notes. So you scan it. Good. Is it clear now? Good. There is another. Yes. Somebody wants to say anything? Oh, okay. So there is another way of teaching reading is jigsaw. Jigsaw reading, you can use this technique with this kind of reading when it has different paragraphs. They're all under one title, like your hairstyle, but the paragraph are not connected. You know, they're separate paragraphs under one title. Like, what does your hairstyle mean? So it talks about hairstyle in Egypt, hairstyle in Japan, hairstyle in Africa, hairstyle in Europe. In jigsaw reading technique, you can ask all the students to go skim the whole thing. So they get an idea, oh, it's talking about 4 regions and it has different meaning politically, locally. So they have the general idea what it said. Then you put the students in specific groups that they study. One group study first paragraph. Second group study paragraph 2. Third group study paragraph 3. Fourth group study paragraph 4. They go through the details, they study for the words, they look at the grammar part, they even practice how to pronounce and how to read the text. After limited time, they get back to their first group. And there are 4 people in the first group. One talk about paragraph 1. Student 2 talk about paragraph 2. Student 3 talk about paragraph 3, and student 4 talk about paragraph 4 and explaining to the group. That's jigsaw. I have a short video. It's very short. It's about 2 minutes about jigsaw reading. Let me share it with you. What is good about jigsaw? What do you think?
It encourages students to talk together and to discuss the text together. And, everyone has a piece of information. They actually somehow notice the points
That's right.
that their partner share with them.
Exactly. That's right.
It also maximizes the time that you have for the entire text. I use it with that also. We call it Knowledge Cafe, where we do this and then we get together, they discuss the issue or the problem to be solved. And then they get back in their group and everybody has a little piece of information. So when you don't have a whole bunch of time, it maximizes the discussion time.
Exactly. And students have a better understanding of the text because they get involved from the very beginning. Yeah. Especially teenagers love jigsaw techniques. Yeah. So once more, for teaching intensive, we have all the stages. pre, while, post. Pre, like using pictures, put the topics on the board, talking about it, look at the headings, gets what's the text about. So you put them in the context. You pre-teach the keywords that helps them to understand better. In while they first they skim it, they get the gist of the reading, then they go through scanning process. You check with them if they have any questions for the other vocabulary or the structure. They go through kind of exercises like true, false, like multiple choice, short answer, just to scan the text to find specific information, matching, and or even which part they like it, and then start giving the reason, which goes to the post, like debating, discussion, role playing, even writing. So it depends on the text. If you want to choose the storybooks, Oxford Grader readers are really good books. They are graded, so you can understand which books go to elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate, upper intermediate. Is it good for a grade like 1, 2, 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, or 9 to 12? Graded readings. And the good thing is, and the positive part of this, that they have different genres. So when you want to introduce it to your students, you said, okay, this like it's about crimes. This is like love story. This one is, for example, it's about environment. So they can choose it based on their interests. Any questions for reading? You want to share anything? What is this? Give me a minute. Okay. So let's get to writing. Why so many students? Here's my question. Why so many students think writing is very difficult? And they don't, when do we start talking about writing, they say, wow, writing. Even when they want to learn another language, they always like to participate in speaking, listening classes, not reading, writing. What do you think? Any ideas?
Lack of confidence in their writing skills, inability to spell or to conjugate. Now it's on black on white.
Exactly. Exactly. And in writing, mostly you have to write more formally, right? Most of the time. Most of the time. So how to use the structures and proper vocabulary, that makes it more difficult. So if you look at through, if you go through units, language books, it's always a start with vocabulary, grammar, dialogues, listening. The last part is writing. So you have enough time to practice with your students for the new words, structure, how to use it verbally. Now listen to this part, then read about this part. Finally, now's the time to write. So if you want to design a course or lessons, just it's much better to put it for this skill. You put it later, so because you have enough time to practice that structure and vocabulary with your students. We have different types of writing, like copying, gap filling, reordering, like this one. This one is copying. It's for elementary level. They start to write how to write the letters. There should be a space between the words. Even this kind of practice, rewrite it. Rewrite this paragraph. I went to my friend's place yesterday. Her name is Kimmy. So So they need to learn. In English, we always started with capital. Names are in capital. At the end of the sentence, you put period or full stop. Or this one. This is another word. This is another kind of activity to rewrite it. Working on spelling, also for lower level. Guess the words and write it. Unscramble the following words. So for lower level, it's mostly on copying technique. But spelling paper, basically you work on spelling for all levels. But when they get to higher levels, they need to learn about the layouts, how to put an email, how to write an essay. So using correct layouts, correct technique for paragraph writing. What is topic sentence? How to support the topic sentence? How to put the paragraphs correctly? How to join sentences and making compound and complex sentences. These are all sub skills for the writing. Like here. Here, give me a minute. I have to show it this way. Otherwise, it's, oops, sorry. Okay. Yep. Yes, here. So fill in the blanks. Here, you're working on writing skills plus grammar. So they have to see, that's the integration of the skills. They have to read it once to understand what the text about. You work on their reading skill. Then they need to choose the correct form of the verb. Grammar. Number 3, they have to spell it correctly. Writing. Last session, we talked about integrated skills. I said you cannot teach one skill just solely, just one skill. Oh, today only I work on writing. It's impossible. All the skills are integrated. Here's an example. What about this one? Look at this picture carefully and write 5 sentences. Use the words. So first you start by, now look at this. Tell me your idea as you work on their speaking. Then ask them to write. Here is also just choosing something, working on their critical thinking, not too easy. That could be one, but also creativity and writing as well. The 4 skills that the very first session we talked for the skills, characteristics of 21st century. So 2 were critical thinking and creativity. So here, you give them a picture and I said, this is what happened at John's family last week. Write the story. They put it in different ways, but your aim is using past tense and how to put the paragraphs. But it said, again, you said, okay, every Sunday, that is what happened at Mary's house. You're working on present tense. So story, but through pictures, you can give them 100 different activities, you know? What usually happens? Frequency adverbs. So they write it. And you also, you don't put them in the box. You don't put them in the box. So they, based on their creativity, they can make different stories. And it's fun. And they come to the class, read it, share it with you. You read it for the class. It's fun too. You can make it more fun when you ask them, I want to write, I want you to draw a picture, even for adults. Oh, it's super fun. And say, I want you to draw something for your friend. I'm so bad in drawing, to be honest. So they draw something. Okay, who you want to share your drawing with? And so I want to share it with Mary. Okay, so email it to Mary. Mary opened the attachment. We don't know what's John's drawing, so I want you to write about that drawing. You explain it in a paragraph and send it to the group. So Mary starts writing and share it with the group. Then later you see the picture. Okay, is that clear? So that's another way.
Yes, sure.
Just I'm talking about how to think differently and how to be creative to find the kind of activity to encourage your students to write. Okay. How was your last vacation? Everybody can write about their last vacation, but sometimes they don't know how to start and what to write. So you can help them by giving them some prompts, some questions. So write about the place, time, climate, quality, and who did you go with. So you give them ideas, some clues to help them to write better. Or what do you have in your bedroom? Share the picture so they can look around and write about it. Here, there's another one. I have something more to here. You can share some pictures with them. Do you know where is this mall? Any ideas?
I think it's in Edmonton, but maybe not.
No, that's the biggest shopping mall in the world. It's in Dubai.
Oh, in the
In the
world.
ver-
Okay. I thought you
yeah,
meant
in
in
the
Canada. Yeah, okay.
yeah. So we can share a picture, and it's sad. Do you know where it is? And they start. Oh, maybe it's in Edmonton, maybe it's in Europe, maybe it's in. I said no, it's in Dubai. I want you to Google it. Just read something about that mall in Dubai, and tell me if you were there, what would you do? Number one, reading the Google. Number two, using conditional sentence, the grammar that you like. Number three, they write it for you. So you work on the writing skills too. Because many students in your class, they love shopping. So they go through it. Oh, what's so special about the mall? So use the topics that you know it depends on their interest. Use a topic that you know they like to search, they like to know. If your students they love sport, so find something regarding sport. If they like basketball, what basketball player, basketball matches, basketball in Canada, basketball in their country, and these things. Okay, we still have 10 minutes, good, but there's some sites that you can get ideas. One is City Guide apps. I promised to Olga that in one of the seminars I introduced some apps or sites. This City Guide apps is very useful. When you want to talk about different cities in the world, they can easily just click on it and they receive a text about the history, about the place, famous places, entertainment places. So that's nice to have. That is okay, which city in Europe is your favorite? So now I give you 2 minutes, go through the information about that city and then share it with the class. Kahoot also, it's very easy to use. You can make quizzes. You can find different texts, different activity sheets, and it's free. Then you share it. You can make games on it and share the link with your students. That's fun too. If you want to practice grammar games, use Bamboozle. Any any kind, believe me, any kind of grammar points, you can find it, and it gives you ideas, 10 different games. So we can share the link in your online classes, give access to your students, and they can click on the correct answer, or they choose a card to answer different kinds of games. Gim It also is an engaging app. or grammar and Trello. There's a board on Trello's and cards that you can share it with your students to do different activities. This one, give me a second, I forget the name. Yeah, Scratch. Scratch, stories, games, animation, usually for teenagers and young learners, like this one. British Council, learn English kids. So listening, reading, speaking and spelling worksheets, grammar and vocabulary, games, and short videos. TED Talk for higher levels to improve their listening, to improve their speaking. Even you can use them as for their writing. I want you to listen to this speech and then write one paragraph about it. No, I want to share. Okay, this one. For your online classes, you can use Google Classroom, Zoom, even Skype. But the good thing for Zoom and Google Classroom, you have breakouts. In Skype, unfortunately, you don't have breakouts. And Acrobat. Also, this is a nice thing too. Will the site.com. You can download it and put different questions on it. Then give your access to your student. They click on it, it spins round and around and around, then it stops. So now, like, you answer to this question or do this activity. This is fun too. Different sites. There are hundreds, but these ones are very popular. For the writing, if I'm not mistaken, I put something here. Pinterest. Pinterest, this is an app that you can download different writing activities. Okay, so any questions so far?
No, thank you very much for your informative presentation.
Thank
I've
you.
really enjoyed.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
very
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you.
Sure. So you finished with your conversation activity, right?
Yes.